Hello, it's Emu, and I'm coming out of hiding because PlayStation State of Play for the 31st of May 2024 just released, and we got a lot more footage of the new Silent Hill 2 remake by BLOOBER team, and a lot of things caught my eye, a lot of things making me a little less excited, a little more skeptical of this project. So we're going to walk through the gameplay trailer and I'm going to give my thoughts as we go along. Capture on PS5, mix of gameplay and in-game cinematics. So I imagine those cinematics would be in-engine. The ambiance looks really good. Akira Yamaoka returns to compose the music. This is the statement that I will come back to a lot throughout this breakdown. Faithfully remade in the original vision. Okay? Remember this statement. I love the movement in the environment, how the wind causes everything to sway and tumble.
This whole town was our special place.
The scene where Maria's on the bed.
Again someday. But you never did.
I like the voice actress that's playing Mary. The water looks nice here. And look at this. Notice how it just says Silent Hill 2. It doesn't say Silent Hill 2 Remake. It says Silent Hill 2. Meaning that they consider this the definitive way to play the game.
I got a letter. The name on the envelope said Mary. Mary died of that damn disease 3 years ago.
In the original Silent Hill 2, the lying figure is walking through the fog away from James. Now, because the lying figure is obscured by the fog, we assume that it is a person. Perhaps a person in need of help because of the blood trail that they are leaving. So the player is encouraged, and James in hand, to follow the lying figure to assist them. Whereas in this game, the lying figure is just leaving these large patches of blood, maybe bile or a bloody vomit, in random spots. And the player is to follow these large patches of strange bloody bile towards what sounds like...
Hey, wait!
a disgusting monster. Now, why any normal person with a thinking brain would want to put themselves in this situation, I have no idea. But the original game sets it up as someone in need of help, and James goes to help them. And this game sets it up as James being morbidly curious of this strange bloody bile vomit, and then hears and sees a creature that makes a disgusting squelching noise and flops to the floor and scurries away. Anyone would just turn around and leave, but James Sunderland in the Silent Hill 2 remake jumps headfirst into it. Of course, the fidelity looks great. And here we actually see something similar to the original game, which is a trail of blood. But the trail leads to a suspicious hole at the bottom of a garage door. Now, a normal person would see this and go, fuck that. Not James Sunderland, at least not in the remake. But just remember, this is a faithful remake of the original vision. My ass. And what does James do? He crawls in the bloody bile to end up on the other side. And here we hear the broken radio. Which is in this house for no inexplicable reason. And the lying figure...
Oh no! Oh yeah!
is on the other side of that broken wall. And James is ready to kill it immediately. So here we've got some sort of grappling mechanic where the enemy will grapple onto you. The lying figure still vomits, as it does from the original. The animation for where James kills an enemy that's downed is very interesting looking, very stiff looking. But the biggest problem here is the fact that they've completely changed the introduction of the lying figure in this game. In the original, James follows a trail of blood for which he sees the lying figure move into the fog, which looks human from a distance. Now, I think the fog looked more obscured it a bit more in the original, but this trail of blood kind of indicates that this person is injured and may need help. And he goes and follows them to a construction site. Now, in this construction site, we see lots of chain link fences, barbed wire picket fences, barrels, and we hear the broken radio in this tunnel, and he goes to investigate behind this wall of pipes, and the lying figure just happens to be there. And the lying figure gets up from whatever it was doing, maybe feasting on that body that it saw, and it approaches him menacingly, making its menacing and disgusting squelches and sounds. That is when James decides to fight back, after he backs up into the wall. For a game that faithfully remakes the original vision, they seem to have taken a lot of creative liberties with this very significant moment in the game. In the original, James follows a person that looks funny but is definitely human shaped, following a blood trail, showing potentially that this is a person in need of help, but also someone who could help James, which then he follows to a construction site where he finds the broken radio and encounters the lying figure. Where in the remake, he follows blotches of bloody bile to the back of a house from a creature that is certainly not human, who he then follows into an incredibly tight squeeze into a house where he then encounters the lying figure. First of all, why would James do that? Why would he follow a clearly inhuman creature to somewhere where he could potentially endanger himself? Or why was there a broken radio just in a random house, where in the original, the broken radio was at a construction site where a hand radio would most likely be? James goes into the tunnel, not to find the person, but to acquire the radio, which then puts him in danger. Whereas in the remake, he immediately puts himself in danger, not knowing of the radio, but knowing of the creature inside. Why they decided to do this instead of the more sensical original? Change for the sake of change, mayhaps. But, like they said, this is a faithful recreation of the original vision. They really cut off that cutscene really early too. They don't show him messing with the radio, trying to find out if it still works or not. He doesn't poke the monster to see if it's human, and he goes like, that's definitely not human. You can break into the back of cars now, which is an understandable mechanic that you would implement in a remake like this. We see our first UI element, and this UI element being the health drink and syringe counter. Now this will be the only UI element besides the crosshair that we will see in this entire demo.
Where are you, Mary?
We see a melted person, someone that's been attacked by a lying figure. Now we've got matchbooks. Now what these matchbooks are for, I don't know. Maybe it's a temporary light source that we can use when it runs out of battery. If you're reading this, leave. This place is not what it seems. There is another side to it, hidden behind a rest, thin as paper. Sometimes you just hear to look behind. So this is some sort of nonsense written by a survivor. Here we have the original introduction to
What you
Laura.
got there?
None of your business.
Well, the initial introduction.
You didn't love Mary anyway.
What? Hey, wait!
You! It was you, wasn't it? You're the one who stepped on my hand.
I don't know. Maybe I did.
What's a little girl like you doing here, anyway?
Huh? Are you blind or something?
What's that letter?
None of your business. You didn't love Mary anyway.
Wait! How do you know Mary's name?
So immediately they've cut down their interaction to such a basic element. Whereas before, he's more concerned about Laura being in this dangerous town all by herself in the original, which makes a lot of sense. Whereas here, all James can think about is just wondering what she's holding on to. That only comes later, after he realizes just how unaware she is of her surroundings. He then goes to relate to her based on what she has in her hands. That's what triggers her to run away and mention Mary. Here, they've basically eliminated 3/4 of an entire conversation in this game, which is supposed to be a faithful recreation of the original vision, remember?
How do you know her name?
And he then asks the audience why Laura knows her name. This is the moment where Maria and James follow Laura into the hospital.
Where did she go?
I don't know. Let's look around.
It looks like the game introduces way more... Okay, the player is indicated on the map, which is good. There seems to be way more interaction between the characters during gameplay.
The place feels so empty. More than the other places we've been.
Okay. As we can see, there's the save point. The director requests the files of the 3 crucial patients. You know which ones. Could you please bring them to his office? In the original, this save room has a slip of paper that describes all 3 people that note refers to. Jack Davis, Joseph Barkin, and Joshua Lewis, giving a brief summary of who these men are and why they're here. Now, why they decided to just quickly summarize them as the 3 patients, I don't know. Maybe they explain who they are later, but at the moment, their identities and their synopses are a mystery at this point in the game. Maybe they expand on them more later, but they just don't show that here. The hospital seems to be more open, more room to walk around. The light coming through the windows is a bit strange. This is the real world and not the mirror world at the moment, but the light coming through the windows kind of gives it a bit of a sense of life rather than a sense of decay. We're on floor 2 now. And now we're going to get a glimpse of the gunplay. Now it seems here the bobblehead nurses won't be alerted if you don't shine your light at them. Now maybe that was a reference to the original film, but it is a cool way to avoid them, I guess. Now the players just decided to aggro this nurse for no reason. Maybe just to show off the combat. Now a big problem that you can see here is that her hand isn't actually grabbing the pipe that she's holding onto. Maybe the developers hadn't rigged the character to do that yet, but you would think that would be such an early thing to accomplish before doing the character animation. Enemies can parry, the player can dodge but not parry themselves. As you can see here, he runs out of bullets, then hits the enemy. But even though they were incapacitated, which they could do by shooting them in the leg, hitting them in the head immediately made them stand up, which is very strange for an enemy to do, unless, you know, they couldn't feel pain, which I doubt. We've got that incredible ambiance by our boy Akira Yamaoka. The sound that that made was very weird. Here we are introduced to the pump action shotgun. We can inspect it like if this was The Last of Us Part 2 or some shit. I think a lot of the mechanics in this game are inspired by The Last of Us. Shotgun immediately incapacitates. The lack of HUD at the moment is a good sign. And this is a new mechanic that they seem to be introducing in this game, in this remake, which is, of course, a faithful recreation of the original Vision, where lights can scatter these insects or cockroaches. I don't know why that's there. Maybe it works similar to the rats in Plague Tale. Again, it's not something that was in the original game. Items will seem to glow, and interactables have that little white circle. There's a quick turn, which I appreciate. The player can't seem to aim their shotgun properly. There would seem to be much more effort put behind that stomp than that pipe swing, which is interesting.
Laura, why do you keep running away from me? And how do you know about Mary?
Mary's my friend. We met at the hospital last year.
Stop lying! Laura, I'm sorry, I didn't mean...
Fine! Don't believe me! See if I care!
Hey!
Let go!
I'm sorry, Laura, but I can't let you just run around this place. You might get hurt.
Hurt by what?
Look, just stay with me, okay? This is no place for a kid.
Fine. But... there's something I gotta get.
Laura,
It's important.
what is it?
A letter. For Mary.
What?
I hid it. In there.
The way that this cutscene plays out in the original is a bit different. They seem to have made it more consistent, but they've made it more ominous, I think.
You sure this is where you left it?
It's in the back. Behind an old pipe.
Okay, wait here. Open the door, Laura.
Why should I? I'm a liar, right? Want me to open it? Huh? Do ya?
Let me out of here, you little brat!
In your dreams, fart face.
Please open the door. There's something in here.
Sure there is. A big lying fart face. See ya, fart face!
Laura! Laura!
I don't think she says fart face in the original. That's when the caged monster appears. Now let's watch how that cutscene plays out in the original. Here Laura's playing with a teddy bear.
Laura?
You know my name?
Eddie told me.
That big fat blabbermouth.
He mentions Eddie,
Mary?
which isn't mentioned in the original, in the remake. Maybe they removed Eddie in the remake, or maybe introduce him in a different way. I don't know, but if they removed Eddie in the remake, that would be a huge detriment. A huge detriment to the final product.
What's the big deal?
Why can't you just tell me?
You gonna yell at me if I don't?
No, I won't.
Here, he gets Laura to a sense of security before he starts questioning her. He gets down on his knee and everything.
We met at the hospital. It was last year.
You liar! Laura,
Fine, don't believe me.
but last year, Mary was already...
Here he's still grappling with the fact that Maria is supposed to be dead according to that timeline. The way that they're rewriting this is changing the fundamental narrative of the original game, which would be the antithesis of the most faithful recreation of the original vision, am I right? The cutscene does a cut there because of the loading screen between the room
Later, okay?
and the hallway.
Important.
What is it?
A letter from Mary.
Huh?
I want to go get it. Is that okay?
Yes, yes.
They go to the room. There isn't any scary framing of the room. The room is just
Come
a
on,
room.
hurry up.
As far as the player knows, this is just a regular old room because it isn't being framed in a very scary way until James enters the room.
Yeah, in the back.
And the music and the camera's askew. and there's no sound
What are you
except
doing,
for
Laura?
his loud
Found a bag
footsteps.
in the desk.
She says, and it's a very small room too. It's not a very large room. It's a very normal looking room. And Laura smashes it behind us out of nowhere. That's when we see the mouth of the caged monster.
Open the door, Laura.
Why should I? I'm a liar, right? Want me to open it? Huh? Huh? Do ya? What's the magic word?
What's the magic words, James?
Laura?
Okay, I guess it won't open it. I think I'll just leave you like this.
You snotty little brat! Open up!
Why, you
Laura?
hurt me.
The room is framed very scarily with the music and the creaky door. The room's very large, very empty, very ominous looking. And she immediately slams the door behind him.
Open the door. There's something in here.
Here there is. A big lying fart face. See a fart face?
Laura! Laura!
Again, the way that they change the dialogue and the framing of the scene is so weird. Like it's like they do it for the sake of change rather than telling the story the way it was meant to be told. It's such a strange way to tackle a remake that isn't even being called a remake anymore. It's just Silent Hill 2. It's just being called Silent Hill 2. It's not been called a remake. It's not been called anything but Silent Hill 2, which is, it's not exactly Silent Hill 2. It's a remake of it that has a bunch of unnecessary changes to the way that it frames its horror, the way it frames its characters. I was willing to give Bloober Team the benefit of the doubt because I actually liked the medium. There's a review of the medium on my channel where I lay out exactly what I think of it and how I thought that it was a decent game. The way that it incorporates the mirror world into its main gameplay, the way the story is told, the puzzle mechanics, I think it's a very competent game, and I think with Bloober Team's talent, they could have done this very well. They could have remade Silent Hill 2 effectively had they just updated the things that needed updating, like the graphics, like the gameplay, like some of the voice acting, and cater it to a more modern audience. But they decided to go further and change dialogue to make the characters less like they were in the original. They made James more passive and less moody. They made him less antagonistic. They made Laura more antagonistic and more moody. They removed dialogue that refers to previous character interactions, removing text logs that give background to the world and just make them into more of an objective identifier. And that's not all. Here is the release date trailer for the game. Here we see the introduction of the game. We see the introduction to
I'm sorry. I was just...
It's okay. I didn't mean to scare you.
Alice? I forgot what her name was. Lisa?
I'm
Something like
looking for
that.
Silent Hill.
I think you should stay away. This
They
town,
do
there's
make her look
something
much
wrong
younger
with it.
than she does in the original game,
Is it
because in the original game she does look a bit
I'm not
older
lying.
than she does,
I
than
guess I
she's
don't really care
supposed
if it's
to.
dangerous or not. I'm going either way.
We see glimpses of the mirror world here.
You shouldn't be here.
of the bubblehead nurses, of the different variants of the bubblehead nurses. More of that bug mechanic.
Tell him I'll be good, please.
More interactions with the boss fight that's associated with her story.
No, please.
I'm not really convinced by her performance as that character. She seems to be a bit wooden, and not in a good way. The original character was very odd. Like, her performance was very strange, but that was to indicate the fact that she doesn't really do well with interacting with other people because she was so traumatized by her brother and her dad. And they keep her looking as plain as she does because that was an intentional decision on her part to make her stand out as little as possible, as something that, you know, she would do to compensate for her abuse. In the end, I'm less optimistic about this remake. I feel like they're changing way too much about the script from the original game. I think they're mistaking what the original game's vision was, when in reality, it was a framing of outcasts, people with severe mental issues that don't know how to interact with other people, and their traumas shaping their personalities, making them awkward and strange to talk to and to be around. And from what I've seen from the changes in the dialogue, they may even be rearranging events that are happening in the game, making stuff happen later, maybe even removing characters. Like Eddie should have been mentioned in the dialogue shown in this gameplay trailer, and he wasn't. What does that indicate? That he's being removed from the game? Or that his story is being haphazardly shoved into the final act? Hopefully not. Hopefully neither of those things. And hopefully it's just cut down a bit for this demo. A dialogue isn't just dialogue. It is a peek into a character's personality. And when you change dialogue too much, you're also changing the character's personality. And that isn't something that I'm willing to put up with in this remake. I genuinely hope I'm wrong, and that they manage to pull this off and make it as much as a fun game as it is a great story. But so far, I can't justify getting this game if it means compromising the story that the original game was telling. Again, I hope I'm wrong. We'll see how it turns out. But right now, I'm probably just going to boot up Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition, which anyone can get, download, and play on their PC today. It's perhaps right now the best way to play Silent Hill 2. And if you've got a copy of Silent Hill 2 on PC, find the Enhanced Edition website, download the mod for yourself, and you'll see exactly how this game was meant to be experienced. If you're watching, thank you for watching, and I'll see ya, I guess.